1997 here, guys. Honestly, after that loss last week to the Denver Broncos, I kind of almost just I had to take a break from football. Um, to lose that game the way we did, just like it was such a slap in the face. It was just a reminder. It was like 2017 all over again. And I just had to take a break, man. You know, I know it sounds kind of pathetic to get upset over, you know, losing a football game over a team that you're a fan of, but you know, I've been a diehard fan of the Dallas Cowboys for a long, long time. I'm not the oldest person on the planet, but watching every game since November of 2007, you know, it was just disappointing. It's just a painful reminder of the type of team we got, and it's hard to stay hopeful for the future, especially with the way the Dallas Cowboys have drafted the last couple of years. You know, the Cowboys, we were once one of the teams, even in just in the last 10 years, that were for the most part decent drafters. I'm not going to go out there and say we were great drafters like some people say, but the Cowboys were decent drafters at one time. But you look at the last couple drafts, and the Cowboys have honestly they've struck out multiple times. The last good draft we had was that 2022 draft. Now, we'll see how this draft turns out in 2025. But yeah, Cowboys have not been great at drafting the last couple years. And as a result, especially on the defensive side of the ball, we've seen the results. Now, you know, I have been critical of Dak Prescott. Overall, Dak Prescott, for the most part, has played a pretty good season. You know what I'm saying? But it's the same old story with Dak. Whenever he has to play a team that's above 500, whenever he has to play a team with a decent secondary, he's nowhere to be found. And this has been the trend for him pretty much his entire career. And it doesn't matter how much help you put around him. It doesn't matter how much, support he has. I mean, he had literally a loaded offense on out there on Sunday. All he did was score 17 points. Heck, his backup Joe Milton came in and outplayed him. So while Dak's had a good season, um, the same story is true for him. Whenever he has to play against the better competition, he always struggles. You know what I'm saying? What's up, Trek Cowboy? Um, it's the same old story with him. But the biggest reason why the Cowboys are 3-4-1 this year is actually not because of Dak Prescott. The reason why we're 3-4-1 is because Jerry Jones hired one of his buddies, Matt Eberflus. And this is where I get into the title of the live stream. Jerry has a hard time letting go. Jerry Jones, over the years, he came out and basically defended Matt Eberflus, basically insisted the Cowboys are not going to make any changes. The Cowboys are not going to, um, you know, move on or do anything regarding the defense side of the ball. Now, he did mention there could be a trade. I'll believe it when I see it, is all I have to say. I don't believe it for 1 second. I believe that's just a lot of talk to keep the fans engaged. But I think most of us fans are not buying it. I'm certainly not buying it. But, you know, let's be honest, fan nation. Matt Eberflus is the worst defensive coordinator the Dallas Cowboys have maybe ever had. And I don't mean like in a long time. I mean maybe ever. Because if you look at it, he's definitely worse than what Mike Zimmer was last year. He's 100% worse than Dan Quinn was. Dan Quinn, by the way, is the best defensive coordinator the Cowboys had since Mike Zimmer's first era between 2000 and 2006. He's worse than Rod Marinelli. He's worse than Mike Nolan, and he's worse than Monty Kiffin. This is probably the worst Dallas Cowboys defense I've ever seen. Maybe in the history of the franchise. That's going all the way back to 1960. And here we are halfway through the season, and Jerry Jones refuses to make any changes. And the thing is, Jerry Jones has actually fired defensive coordinators halfway through the season before. He really has. If you go back to 2009, right? He fired Brian Stewart, made Wade Phillips the interim DC. Defense got better. The Dallas Cowboys ended up making the playoffs that year and actually winning a playoff game against the Philadelphia Eagles in 2009. 2010, Wade Phillips got fired and he hired Paul Polonsky or something like that to be the interim DC. So it's not like Jerry Jones has never fired a defensive coordinator halfway through the season. He has done it before. What's up, Daniel Mendez? And I'll answer that to Reddit here in a sec. But when Jerry Jones likes a guy, and I've always said this, when Jerry Jones likes a guy, it doesn't matter if it's a player, doesn't matter it's a coach. When Jerry Jones likes a guy, he has a hard time letting go. I'm going to give you a list of players that Jerry Jones should have moved on from or held on to for way too long, and coaches that he should have moved on from. Let's start with the most recent one, Matt Eberflus. Matt Eberflus should have been fired, Fan Nation, Cowboys Nation, after that Packers game. We should have won that Packers game, but because his defense sucked, we ended up tying against Green Bay. We should have won that game, but we ended up in a tie. Jerry Jones refuses to admit that he's wrong. Why? Because it goes back to Matt Eberflus being his buddy. Matt Eberflus was the Dallas Cowboys linebackers coach for like 7 years. Then, Jerry Jones really wanted him to be the DC. He ended up taking a DC job in Indianapolis. Then he became the head coach in Chicago. Finally became available. Jerry took him back, and Jerry has wanted that for years. That's what he wanted. Matt Eberflus has not done a good job. He's done a horrible job of coaching up this defense. And I'll admit, I thought Matt Eberflus was going to be good at first. I thought the run defense would be better, but everybody on this defense has gotten worse. You can't point to one player on this defense that's gotten better since Matt Eberflus has gotten here. Matt Eberflus is the first one. Jerry should have fired him after game 4. Did he? No, because it's his buddy. Let's go to another example. Dak Prescott. Jerry Jones honestly should have done like what the Philadelphia Eagles did with Carson Wentz. They should have moved on from Dak Prescott in 2020. He was franchise tagged. He was coming off of a devastating ankle injury. It was a perfect time for the Cowboys to move on, get some value out of Dak, trade him for a first round pick, second round pick. What did Jerry do? He went out there and he paid a guy coming off of a devastating ankle injury. Dak didn't live up to his money the first go around. And instead of letting Dak earn his contract last year or letting him play it out, and if he wanted to give him another contract, he could have gotten a contract for way less. Jerry doubled down and he went out there and he paid Dak Prescott. Why did he pay Dak Prescott? Because a lot of the Dallas Cowboys fan base are big Dak Prescott fans. Dak has overcome a lot in his life, and honestly, he should be very proud of what he's accomplished. He's accomplished a lot, especially from where he came from. He came from poverty, very hard background, very hard life, and he made it to the NFL, became a, starting quarterback for Dallas Cowboys. A lot of people can relate to that. Jerry can use that to sell tickets and all that stuff. So he went out there, he doubled down, paid Dak, and honestly, most teams would have moved on from him. The Eagles moved on from Carson Wentz after even though Carson Wentz had some success there, they moved on from him. Heck, even the Los Angeles Rams, they traded Jared Goff. Jared Goff literally took the Rams to a Super Bowl in 2018, and they traded him to the Detroit Lions. And Jared Goff, I think everybody can agree he's better than Dak. If you don't think that Jared Goff is better than Dak, look up the stats. You're being biased. Jared Goff's clearly better. But anyways, that's another player. Jason Garrett. Jason Garrett was head coach of the Dallas Cowboys for 10 years. Most of us, including me, agree. Jason Garrett, I like Jason Garrett, first of all. I think Jason Garrett wasn't a bad head coach, but he was not good enough to take the Cowboys to the next level. He wasn't good enough to take the Dallas Cowboys to the next level. Okay. And he was there for way too long. Jason Garrett honestly should have been fired after that 2015 season where the Cowboys won one game without Tony Romo. But Jerry doubled down. He held on to Jason Garrett forever. We should have moved on from him years ago, but he held on to him too long. Why? Jason Garrett's dad, you know, was a scout for the Cowboys for a long time. Jason Garrett was a backup quarterback for the Cowboys for a long time, assistant coach there. Jerry had a hard time letting go. Jason Garrett's another example. Tyron Smith. I was saying this back in 2022 when Tyron Smith got hurt in training camp that the Cowboys need to move on. We didn't. We held on to him for another year or two, and then he retired. And I love Tyron Smith. He's a great football player. But for the amount of money that he was making and for the production and for him being not being as healthy as he should, we held on to him for way too long. It's another player. Sean Lee's another example. Sean Lee is a guy that I really like too. Sean Lee was a guy that was very good when he was out there on the field, just like Tyron Smith, but he, for whatever reason, just couldn't stay healthy his entire career. Dallas Cowboys should have really moved on from him years ago. And they didn't. So Jerry just has a tendency to hold on to players that and coaches that he likes, and he refuses to admit when he's wrong, and he refuses to let go because he falls in love with certain players or he falls in love with certain coaches. Like I said, when Jerry likes a guy, he refuses to let him go. And I'm sure that there's other examples that people could point out to me of him doing this, but these are just some of the more recent examples of players and coaches Jerry Jones held on to for too long that he should have moved on from. And that's part of the reason why the Dallas Cowboys franchise is in the situation it's in. And it's not because the Cowboys are a horrible franchise, because some people like to say that we're like the Jets, Cowboy Nation. We're not like the Jets or the Jaguars. We're not that bad. But are we great? No. If I had to compare the Dallas Cowboys to any franchise, the Chargers would probably be the closest comparison. Now, they did make it to the AFC Championship game in 2007, so they do have that. But outside of that, if you look at the amount of playoff wins the Chargers have had since the year 2000, they only have one more than the Cowboys. They have five, we have four. The record in the regular season's pretty identical. There's just a lot of similarities between the Dallas Cowboys and the Chargers. Cowboys are usually a decent team during the regular season, choke in the playoffs. Chargers, more or less, for the most part, have been the same way. Now they do got Jim Harbaugh, so that helps them a lot for the future. Brian Schottenheimer is who we got. Still not 100% sold on him yet. I'm really not, because there's been times in the game where he's made some calls that have been questionable. Threat Cowboy. As for that game tomorrow against the Cardinals, I honestly don't know, man. I mean, the Cardinals are one of those teams the Cowboys, for whatever reason, have always struggled against. You know, I mean, 2 years ago in 2023, we all thought that was going to be like an easy game. It wasn't. The Cardinals came and beat up and hurt, and they kicked our rear end. So I have no idea what to expect for tomorrow. I'll come, to you guys with my keys to that game later, but it is what it is. Pat's Kingdom Network. You don't know about football. Defense stepped up and Dak played like, well, yeah, I agree with the last part. Dak did play terrible, Pat's Kingdom, in the Broncos game, man. The defense, yeah. The thing is, we know that the Cowboys defense is terrible. And see, that's why I was just criticizing Jerry Jones for hiring Matt Eberflus for. But I was also critical of Dak Pat's Kingdom Network. This for years. I was just talking about Dak Prescott and why Jerry Jones should have moved on from him. He's a front runner. He pads his stats against teams that are beat up and hurt or not very good. And when he has to go up against teams that are good, he usually struggles. Unless that team that's good has a bad defense, which the Broncos don't have. The Broncos have a very good defense. He usually struggles. Dak never shows up, and people will say, "Well, Romo was the same way." Wrong. Bro, I saw Tony Romo go toe to toe with some of the best teams in football. We didn't always win, but there was actually some times we did win. 2006 against the Colts, went toe to toe with Peyton Manning. They won that game. Colts won the Super Bowl that year. 2009, the Cowboys beat the New Orleans Saints in New Orleans, who were undefeated at the time. Romo played a good game. The Cowboys won. 2013, we did lose to the Denver Broncos, but Romo played a good game. Shootout. Just couldn't get the defense, just couldn't do enough. 2014, year later, he beat the Seattle Seahawks, played a great game, was clutch against Seattle, against the Legion of Boom in their prime. He did that, played a great game. Even that loss against Green Bay, Romo played a great game. 15 for 19, 191 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. You can't ask a quarterback to do much better than that, man. When have we ever seen Dak Prescott play like that against a good team? See, I just named you like 4 examples of Tony Romo stepping up against some of the better teams in the NFL and showing up. When has Dak Prescott ever done that? Because people will try and point to the Lions in 2023. I'll give him that. Dak actually played decent in that game. Um, I'll give you that. But at the same time, we got a lot of things that happened in that game. The game that the Lions really beat themselves in that game. We probably should have lost that game. But you know, anyways, there's not been a lot of signature wins with Dak Prescott that I can actually sit here and say that that he's had in his career. Romo, I just named a couple, 3 of them. I've never seen Dak have that signature win where he's stepped up, and here we are 10 years into his career. But this is not about Dak. This is about Jerry Jones and his ego refusing to let go. And that's why the Cowboys are where they are. People like to say the Cowboys have been a crap franchise. I mean, we're not really a crap franchise. I mean, we have the 11th highest winning percentage in the regular season since the year 2000. So the Cowboys are not usually a horrible team during the regular season, but when it comes to the playoffs, we've been terrible. Like I said, if you want to compare the Cowboys to any team in the last 25 years, Chargers are probably the best comparison. Even though they got one championship in 2007 appearance, if you look at the amount of playoff wins they've had, if you look at their regular season record, it's probably the most identical of the Cowboys that you could find. Them or Minnesota. Minnesota's been to 3 NFC championship games, but those are probably the 2 teams would be the Chargers and the Vikings, the most comparable, most comparable. That doesn't mean they're the same. That doesn't mean that those teams haven't had more success at times. That's just the most comparable. So, yeah, man. But, yeah, man, until Jerry Jones, which I don't think he's going to do this at this point. The guy's 80, how old is he? 83 years old. Until the Jones family and the Joneses decide to play some hardball and move on from players and move on from coaches that they and stop holding on for so long, we're going to be in the same situation every year for the most part. I mean, I do give Jerry Jones some credit. He moved on from Micah Parsons. Now, I know a lot of people still feel like the Cowboys lost that trade. I don't really, I mean, I guess you could say that because the Cowboys haven't been great at drafting. But the thing is, I mean, it's hard to justify the Dallas Cowboys going out there and paying Micah Parsons $47 million because that's what he wanted, clearly. There's no way we would have been able to afford that, number 1. Number 2, Micah Parsons is nowhere even close to being worth 47 million. I understand that he gets a lot of sacks. I understand that he's a great pass rusher. I get that. He really is. But if you're going to sit here and justify that getting a Pro Bowl defensive tackle and 2 future first round picks, overpaying overpaying, that's funny. Overpaying Micah Parsons 47 million is the right decision, then I don't know what to tell you. I just disagree. Micah was causing a lot of problems with his podcast anyways. I was a big fan of him his first couple years. I really was. He was one of my favorite players. I'll admit that. The last couple years, man, I started noticing the signs. And when I started seeing that he was asking for too much money, after he came out and said he was willing to take a team-friendly deal, after he came out and said he was willing to, take less so the Cowboys could add more, and he did the complete opposite, I was like, "You know what, man? This guy is full of crap. Get him out of here." That's how I felt about it. And it was really sad and disappointing, but it is what it is. I think the Cowboys made the right decision in that regard in the future. I honestly don't think Micah would probably help us in the, pass rush, I will admit that. But in terms of run defense, that guy can't play run defense for nothing. I saw him against my Cowboys. He was quitting on plays. We were destroying Micah Parsons running the football at him. And hopefully the Carolina Panthers learn that lesson today. They want to beat the Green Bay Packers, you run the ball down their throats. Just like you did against the Cowboys, you do the same thing against Green Bay Packers. And teams need to start figuring that out. You want to beat the Packers, run straight up the middle, run at Micah Parsons. He'll quit. Cowboys did it, and if our defense was even a tiny bit better, we would have beaten the Green Bay Packers on Sunday Night Football. Not a doubt in my mind. If our defense was even a tiny bit better, we would have beaten Green Bay. No, I'm not even joking. Everybody can say I'm stupid for saying that. No, I'm not. If you want to beat the Green Bay Packers, all you got to do is run straight up the middle. I'm surprised teams still haven't figured that out, and we're halfway through the season. Carolina, it probably would be beneficial for Green Bay to beat Carolina. They'd give the Cowboys a better chance in terms of seeding playoff wise. I will say that. But, Green Bay and their fan base has made me so mad that, you know, I don't even know, man. But you want to beat the Green Bay Packers, run the ball down their throats. So, but yeah, until Jerry Jones's ego and until he decides, which I don't think he will, to let go of players. We're gonna be in this and coaches that he keeps for too long, we're gonna be in the same boat. So, that's all I gotta say about that.